Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a good few times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, a good few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are just pretty damn solid all round. I've had lagers, lots of different kinds of IPAs and darker styles from them, but the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I haven't tried from these guys before. It's a style that you don't come across all that often, in fact, and I haven't tried too many examples of this style on the channel throughout its history, of course, either. So yeah, this beer was released for a bit of a special occasion as well, and I've heard that it is really pretty nice, and it's also got a little bit of age on it too. So these are all factors which I think will make this quite an interesting review. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious about this one. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go a little bit north of me here in Kowloon to a place called Pho Tan in the New Territories here in the Hong Kong SAR, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Carbon Brews. So this particular beer is called To Infinity and Beyond. 2 is TWO, of course, because this beer was produced for their second anniversary, but this one comes in at 11.9% ABV, and this one is a barrel-aged wheat wine. So yeah, this beer I believe was released in, I think, 2020 or 2021, if I'm not mistaken, so it does have maybe 3 to 4 years age on it. I came across this one in the wine rack, I think, out in Sai Kung, if I'm not mistaken, and I just hadn't seen this one before, so I thought, you know, why not, let's get a bottle of this and see what it's all about. Not all that often you come across a wheat wine. This may well be the first Hong Kong brewed wheat wine that I'm reviewing for you, but it's actually quite a popular style here in Asia. And for those of you who don't know, a wheat wine is basically the same idea as a barley wine, except 30 to 40% of the malt base is composed of wheat, so they can be really interesting. But yeah, To Infinity and Beyond, an 11.9% barrel-aged wheat wine from Carbon Brews in Pho Tan in the New Territories here in Hong Kong, brewed for their second anniversary. So yeah, let's crack on then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Carbon Brews before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things, and that's being added to quite regularly, of course, because I am based out here now. So yeah, check out the playlist of beers from other countries and things as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Carbon Brews before we taste the beer. So, Carbon Brews, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Pho Tan in the New Territories in Hong Kong, a little bit to the north of me here in Kowloon, and the brewery was founded back in 2018, and it can be found on the 1st and 10th floor of the Union Industrial Centre in Pho Tan in the New Territories, like I said. But this was previously the Hong Kong brewery of Kyuchi Brewery from Ibaraki Prefecture to the north of Tokyo in Japan, and they were brewing their Hitachino Nest beer there before, and they established this original facility back in 2015. So the original general manager of the brewery facility was Chris Wong. He was previously an accountant by trade. He was from the US, but he moved to Hong Kong for family reasons. and for work as well. But he also co-founded HK Brewcraft and Heroes Beer Company, which have both featured on the channel before. But he was also working for Hitachino's Hong Kong operations. But Carbon Brews basically took over this brewery in late 2018, and they were established as a completely new brand after Kiyuchi Brewery pulled out of this. So the brewery operates a 35 hectoliter brew kit, and the current head brewer is Diaz Zumashev, and he's joined in the brewing team by Justin Chan, Lydia Kuzmina, Harry Liu and Tommy Liu. But these days they've got a tap room in Central on Hong Kong Island, which is a really nice place actually. You should go and visit that. I need to figure out what happened to my video that I filmed there, but they've also got another bar in Akasaka in Tokyo over in Japan. But as of June 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced about 135 different kinds of beer, and they do a whole variety of different styles actually. The Crispy Boy Mexican Lager is lovely. I would recommend that you try that one. Crazy Rich Lupulins, if you can find it, has always been great as well. They've got a lovely black double IPA, which I forget the name of too. But yeah, these guys have done some really solid beers over the years in my experience. From what I understand, they have suffered a little bit from management problems and things in recent times, but yeah, the beers have always been pretty solid in my experience. So if you get the chance to try them, you will get a pretty solid beer out of it, and hopefully they can sort out all the things that are going on behind the scenes with the company actually. But yeah, that is everything that I can tell you about Carbon Brews for the moment. So if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all those different beers that they've done. But yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at this beer itself. So this one is a 650 milliliter bomber bottle. You can see the artwork on this one is lovely actually. I think this is pretty awesome in fact. So yes, as we said, this beer is called To Infinity and Beyond, obviously a reference to Buzz Lightyear and their second anniversary. But I do like that, the kind of I don't know how many bits that is, I forget, is it 16-bit colour or something? But yeah, the artwork on it is pretty damn cool. But you can see on the side here, if I bring this up, let me just check that the camera's there, you can see the Carbon Brews symbol there. You can see that it's got this lovely kind of blue wax top in it. I've sliced around the edge there just so we can get it open a little bit. But yeah, 11.9% barley-aged wheat wine. I did try to research a little bit before this video to figure out what barrel it was aged in. Unfortunately, there was nothing to say what barrel it actually was. But yeah, that's that. But like I said, 11.9% wheat wine, this wine. A wheat wine is the same idea as a barley wine, but about 30 to 40% of the malt base tends to be wheat. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what we can do. Just hopefully I don't have any issues opening this one. As I did, like I say, there we go. It opened quite nicely. Pleased with that. Shows you how good my Swiss Army knife is. Sliced pretty cleanly, I have to say. Happy with that. So let's get this guy out and into the glass. This should be pretty good. So like I said, I suspect that this beer was released in 2020 or 2021. Again, couldn't really find that information. But yeah, it'll have about 3, maybe 4 years age on it at the time of drinking. So yeah, barley wines are usually good between like 2 and maybe 4 years at most, and then they start to kind of deteriorate. So if you're aging barley wines, and the same goes for wheat wines, you should think about it a little bit. But yeah, this one, as you can see, has poured a really interesting colour actually. Before the head disappears incidentally, you can see this one's poured with about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of fawn, very light beige coloured head. I'll just let you guys have a little look at the colour of that. It looks very nice, I have to say. I think the camera's not really focusing on it for some reason. Let me just cover this up. Nah, that's not making a difference. Yeah, the automatic focus on this thing can be a bit of a pain sometimes. But yeah, there you go. There you go. But yeah, you can see the head on this one, kind of foamier bubbles, bigger bubbles sitting at the bottom of the head, and it gets a little bit foamier the further up that you go. But you can see that head has just faded away to be a thinner, foamy layer now, but you've got that big fluffy ring around the edge of the glass there. Now the colour of this beer is quite interesting because to you guys it's appearing like a kind of chestnutty colour. It's almost the same colour as the glass on the bottle, I think, just through the viewfinder there. But if you shine the light through this one, it's actually got this lovely kind of coppery note to it actually, which is interesting. But yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. And yeah, with wheat wines, I don't know how much you kind of need to care about that. But when it comes to the more brown beers like this, the barrel can play a role, and any adjuncts can play a role in that colour as well. But the beer does have a little bit of a natural haze to it. Yeah, you can see that. It has a good little clarity, but yeah, there is a bit of natural haze to this one. And yeah, if you shine the light through it, like I say, you can see there is a fair little bit of carbonation in this one. But when the beer's been sitting in the bottle for a couple of years, that's to be expected. And if I shine the light through the bottom of the bottle, there is a little bit of sediment in the bottom of this one, which again is to be expected. And I can see if I just tip the bottle like that, yeah, there is a wee bit of sediment at the bottom. So yeah, we'll see about that a bit later on. But anyway, I think we've said everything we really need to about the appearance of this one. Wheat wines can be this colour. I have seen them slightly lighter than this as well. I think the first wheat wine I ever tried was from St. Gallen Brewery in Japan, and it was Untappd, if I'm not mistaken, was the name. So yeah, the first wheat wine I tried wasn't American, it was a Japanese one. But yeah, we've said everything we need to about the appearance of this beer. Quite a little bit of carbonation visible, as we said. Let's move on and have a wee look at the nose and see what we get here. I'm really curious about this, as I've said. Oh yeah, it's actually a bit difficult to tell from the nose what barrel it's been used in here. I think it's potentially just bourbon. At a push, it might well be a little bit of rum. It's definitely not like wine barrels or anything like that. It's either, I think it's most likely bourbon. It could potentially be a rum barrel. But aroma wise, this beer is quite nice. Kind of gives you everything you'd expect actually. You've got a good little bit of brown sugar coming out of this one. Quite a lot of breadiness as well. You can still smell some of the hoppy character. You're getting a little bit of smoothness from the barrel, and you're also getting the fruity notes. Like I said, for me, barley wines and rye wines, wheat wines, all of these kind of related styles. Like I say, I think these are good to age between 2 and 3 years, but if you go beyond that, you're starting to push it. So this beer might not be in its best condition, and I will say that I can start to smell a little bit. You get this kind of like spicy, flat, like leafy, floral type thing out of the aroma, and you can start, and I'm starting to smell that in this one, and that is just the hoppy character, because these beers are very heavily hopped. Incidentally, the barley wine is basically the big brother of the double IPA, pale ale IPA, double IPA, barley wine. These are related styles, of course, so you can smell a little bit of that in this one, and we'll see if it comes out in the flavour. Might be all good though, but yeah, just that wet, leafy, almost like rotten leafy kind of thing. You're getting a little bit of that out of this beer. But yeah, let's just break it down though and describe the aroma for you a wee bit more in depth. So for me, the backbone of this beer, you can smell what I suspect is lovely, smooth American oak. There's a lot of that coming out of this beer. Getting a good little bit of vanilla mixed in with that wood as well. What I heavily suspect is like sweet American bourbon. Smells very familiar in that sense. It's probably one of the bourbon barrels that I've encountered before with beers. So yeah, smooth American oak, little bit of bourbon in there. I think it is bourbon that this has been aged in, incidentally, yeah. But yeah, on top of that, there's like a kind of fresh wholemeal brown bready bread crust in there. A lot of sweet wholemeal brown bread coming out of this beer. Certainly getting quite a little bit of like dense, smooth, white bready character coming out of it as well. Yeah, dense, smooth, white bready character coming out of this one. And I do like that. The more that you smell this one, the more of that lovely breadiness you get out of this beer. But on top of that, of course, you start to get the brown sugars. And one of the big differences between a regular barley wine and the wheat wine is that the brown sugars tend to just be a little bit more kind of butterscotchy, if that makes sense, rather than being big and oily and straight up like caramel or treacle molasses. So with this beer, you get a nice toasty, sweet caramel in the base there. On top of that, there's a lot of like Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of character coming out of it. There's a good little bit of straight up sweet caramel in there too, but quite a lot of biscuit. I'm getting a lot of McVitie's digestive biscuity character coming out of this beer, which is very, very nice, I have to say. There are a few little, subtleties underneath this one. There is a little touch of like nuttiness, maybe pecans or almonds or something like that. So, yeah. There's things in like that are really, really interesting in this one, in fact. So, yeah, I like the way that the malty side of this beer goes together. And in terms of the maltiness, this beer I think really is in pretty damn good form actually. So I'm curious to see how that translates into the flavour. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, the green component, for me, there is a good little bit of earthiness to this one and a wee bit of herbal character. I am still getting some of the kind of brighter floral aromaticity out of it and a nice little bit of grassiness as well, quite a wet grassiness I would say. But like I said, with barley wines and the derivatives, when they get to a certain age, you get this kind of wet, leafy, kind of almost rotten vegetal kind of thing coming out of them, and you can smell that starting to take a grip of this beer in a sense, but not overly much actually. Yeah, so for me, the way that goes together, the green component is still in pretty good nick. I didn't see a bottled on date on this one, let me just check again, but yeah, there's nothing on the bottom there and I don't see anything. As I said, it does say best before the 23rd of September 2022. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. And it does tell you the hops as well, which we'll come back to in a wee minute. Never saw that on there. But yeah, the hoppy side of this beer, the green component, is pretty nice. Let's talk about the fruity side of things then. Well, the fruity side of the beer is pretty nice actually. For me, there's a little bit of, there's certainly, like I'm getting a lot of sultana out of this one, dry white green grapes. Good little bit of oily pear as well, which I find really interesting. So yeah, nice oily pear. Good little bit of a good little bit of sediment. Good little bit of like date. Why am I saying sediment? There's a good little bit of like that. Yeah, you get the sultanas, the oily pear, that sort of kind of dates, sultanas, what's the word that I'm looking for? Yeah, you get this lovely oily peary note out of this one. There is a wee touch of red fruit out of this, maybe a slight fig or a plum maybe, like a dry plum, prune. There's a wee bit of that, especially when you sugar the beer up. And it just has that little touch of sharpness to it. So that's really interesting. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of this beer, there is a wee bit of like a slightly raisin or plummy note to it. But yeah, dates, pears, sultanas, I think describes this one quite nicely. The aroma in this beer is absolutely lovely. But let's just have a wee look at the malt base in this one. So the malt base is wheat, pale ale, Vienna, Carahel, Cara wheat and melanoidin malt, so that makes sense with all the kind of nice brown bready character that we've got in this one, especially the Vienna malt, and the Caramel is going to give you quite a little bit of that as well. And then the hops in this one, Chinook, Cascade, Amarillo and Williamette. So yeah, Chinook and Cascade are your kind of classic bittering hops, of course. Amarillo's probably, it's normally it would give you orange, of course, but it's probably at this age it's going, that's why you're getting all these kind of peary notes out of it. And Williamette will give you the wee touch of red fruit, actually. It's a popular hop to use in barley wines. All four actually are American. Chinook about 12% alpha acid, Cascade's about 8, Amarillo's about 12 as well actually. Williamette I think is about 10 or 12 if I'm not mistaken too. But yeah, interesting malt and hop profile in this beer, I have to say. I just wish I'd noticed that before I started filming actually. But yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the To Infinity and Beyond, an 11.9% barrel-aged wheat wine from Carbon Brews in Photan in the New Territories here in Hong Kong. Let's get stuck in their second anniversary beer. Slàinte, skål, and cheers. Oh, yeah. That's still in good condition, I will say that. I've had barley wines that have been, you know, 7, 8 years old, and you can feel just the way the hops kind of sort of break up in these beers. It's just not the most pleasant of flavours. This one at 4 years old, as I suspect, is still in good condition. You're only getting the very start of that process going on with this one. So if you do find a sort of if you do drink this beer now, roughly at the time of publishing, you are going to still get a really good quality beer out of it actually. How long it lasts beyond that, who knows, but yeah, this is an interesting experiment nonetheless. But yeah, the beer is pretty damn good actually. This is a nice wheat wine, I like it. As I said, the thing that kind of distinguishes this style for me is the kind of bigger breadiness and the sort of smoothness in the malt base in comparison with the more oily and brown sugary barley wine. But yeah, this one gets a big thumbs up. Well done to Carbon Brews. Kind of a shame all the problems they've had with the business when they, you know, back in the days like this, they were able to produce some really, really good beers actually. But yeah, this gives you everything you want. Lovely big breadiness, good bit of sweetness, nice bit of hoppy character, and also some good fruity notes, and that wee bit of boozy warmth that you want from a barley wine or a wheat wine or a rye wine or whatever. So yeah, let's just break this beer down then and describe the flavour a wee bit more in depth for you. So middle third of your palate then. The backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely, smooth, oaky, that American oaky character there, which forms the backbone of the beer. As you move further forward from that, you get that little bit of like vanilla type quality there. So the vanilla actually gives you quite a wee bit of kind of smooth sweetness actually. So yeah, lovely smooth American oak in there, the wee bit of vanilla character. Above that, you can definitely get that little bit of bourbon. And as I've explained on the channel many a time before, for me, the bourbon is a little bit more bitey, I think, than Scotch whisky. Scotch whisky is very, very smooth, but American bourbon just is, you know, it is sweeter, but it just has a bit of bite to it, so I like that. So, yeah, above the bourbon layer in this one, you start to get the kind of bready notes out of the beer. So you can feel there's this fresh wholemeal, brown bready bread crust coming out of this one. So yeah, fresh brown bready bread crust in there, sweet kind of wholemeal brown bread, and then on top of that, you start to get the white bready notes out of this one. So the Cara Munich and stuff like that, and Cara wheat and things that are in here, those will be the ones, and the wheat itself will give you that big kind of white bready character this beer has. So the white bread that you get is quite smooth, and it has a nice density to it as well. But yeah, you can feel the wheat above that. The wheaty, the kind of more dense and smooth wheaty character that comes out of it, I think, is really very, very nice, and that lingers into the aftertaste actually. And like I said, that's one of the kind of defining features, if you like, of a wheat wine. So let's look at the brown sugary side of things then. Yeah, brown sugary side of this beer is absolutely lovely. So the base of the brown sugar, you've got a lovely kind of toasty brown sugary character coming out of this one, but you've also got a little bit of a kind of leatheriness out of it too. One of the ways you can play with a barley wine, of course, or a wheat wine, is to give it a longer wort boil, and if you do that, you get these lovely big leathery brown sugary notes, and it just adds to the complexity of the beer. I don't get the impression that this one has been the wort boil has been too long in going with this one, but yeah, it's I think the smoothness that you're getting out of this is probably a factor that comes from the age of the beer. So you've got toasty brown sugar underneath, that lovely smooth leathery kind of character that comes out of it as well, and then you also have above that you get the circle in the dead center of your palate is like straight up sweet caramel. Maybe there's a teeny little bit of that, you know, treacle molasses, highly caramelized brown sugar in there, but not too much. Yeah, toasty brown sugar, more leathery kind of notes, oily sweet caramel, then a wee bit of treacle molasses, and of course in the centre of your palate, that is the centre of the boozy side of the beer. Above all of that, you have this really nice McVitie's digestive biscuity character coming out of it as well, which I think is good. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really, really nice. There are a few little nutty elements coming out of the beer underneath, but yeah, all in all, pretty damn good in that sense. So yeah, we've covered the middle third of the palate in the beer, which is the most complex side of things. So yeah, remember, further forward on your palate you get the kind of sweeter flavours, further back you get the more kind of dry and bitter sort of flavours, and if we go to the back third of the palate, you're going to get similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So yeah, that border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. The base is that sort of brown bready character, and you've got the white bread in the middle, then a wee bit of the more wheaty bitiness on top of that. But yeah, the base of that, the base of the back third of your palate, you get the drier side of the American oak in there. You can feel the bourbon layer, which feels a little bit more bitey, of course. Then you've got that brown bready bread crust, almost like a German rye bread crust. Actually, the further the more that this flavour evolves, then yeah, the kind of Vienna malts in there, big brown bready character coming out of it in there, but that's a lot lighter and a lot more airy than the white bready character above that, which again is a bit lighter, more airy. You do get a wee bit of sweetness out of that, right enough, and then the wheaty side of the beer sits on top of that, and the wheat does have a little bit of bitiness on that back third of the palate as well, but above everything else you've got that yeasty character coming out of the beer too. So let's just have a wee look at the yeastiness on that back third of the palate. So yeah, yeasty side of things. It's interesting. In the dead centre, you've got this really sweet. Yeah, you have this like really sweet wholemeal brown bready character coming out of it. Then as you move further out from that, you've got a little bit more of a kind of more grainy brown bread and a wee bit of white bread as well, and then the very edge is like almost kind of crackery in a sense. I think you get more woodiness and crackeriness out of this beer into the aftertaste. So yeah, the yeasty character is interesting. Sweet brown bread in the middle, more dry brown bread around it, then a dense white bread and a wee bit of like a crackery crust, and all of that, as I say, sits on top of the back third of the palate. So yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it condenses down and squashes together. So yeah, I think that's the malty and yeasty side of this beer pretty much covered. So yeah, let's go to the hoppy side of things then. So back corners of your palate, you can feel that nice little touch of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it gets a little bit herbal, and then as you push toward the front corners of your palate, you can feel there is a little bit of an underlying kind of piney, resiny note in there, and that's obviously going to be from the Chinook and the Cascade and things like that. So yeah, the wee bit of Chinook is going to give you that pine resin, but of course the hoppy character has dropped out as the beer's gotten older and so on and so forth. But yeah, a little bit of floral spice on the front corners of the palate, then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy and wet, I would say. So yeah, the way this one goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So let's have a wee look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a little bit of that bready build up in there. Brown bread in the base, the white bread underneath, and a bit of bitey, wheaty character on the top. But yeah, the base of that front third of your palate, again you've got the smooth American oak in there. You can feel the bourbon. You've got the brown bread, the bread crust, the brown bread, the white bread, and then the smooth. The wheat is very smooth on that front third of your palate. But then you can feel that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, let's have a wee look at the fruity side of things then. So I will say in the impact flavour you do get quite a wee bit of orange, which is going to be the Amarillo, of course. But yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a really nice you have got a really nice little bit of I would say you've got a good little bit of like sultana in there for sure. Then as you move, yeah, dry white green grape sultana definitely in there. Then as you move further forward from that, you've got some nice oily pear. See a little bit of date as well actually into the aftertaste on the back half of that front third of your palate, definitely some dates. So yeah, sultanas, dates, then an oily pear, and as you move toward the front half of that front third of your tongue, it really becomes more orangey and more focused on the Amarillo. I think the Cascade is the one that's going to give you those datey and kind of peary type notes. I'm not getting too much in the way of red fruit in this one, maybe just a little bit of plum sitting on top. Yeah, there's a little bit of a red fruity, like a kind of plum character sitting on top of all of that. And that lingers into the aftertaste a wee bit, but yeah, mainly sultanas, pears, dates, and then just yeah, that a wee bit of orange, a kind of oily orange from the Amarillo, and a kind of plum in there as well from the Williamette, I suspect. But yeah, all in all, this is a really, really nicely done wheat wine, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. It would have been cool to try it a little bit younger, see what it was like back then, but the flavour of this one remains very, very good. The only maybe slight issue I have with it in a sense is the level of carbonation. So at this point I think we should move over to the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, what would we say? Yeah, I mean, it comes across as being sort of top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. It actually feels very clean and kind of light in a sense. It's, you know, surprisingly light for a big 11.9%er. But you have to remember it is barrel aged, so when you barrel age the beer, you're gonna sacrifice a little bit of the mouthfeel to get all these infused flavors. So yeah, that is apparent in this one. The beer does have a little bit too much carbonation. That is, you know, you can't do anything about that. The beer's like 4 years old, and it's obviously bottle conditioned as well, which is quite apparent in this one. So yeah, the carbonation is a wee bit high just because of the age of the beer. That's being nitpicky, of course. But yeah, it has, you still get a good little bit of bitterness out of this one. I mean, this is probably about 50-ish IBUs. I think it said on the front of the bottle. 65, right, wasn't too far away. I would have said about 50 with this one. So yes, 65 IBUs in this beer. Then the malt base, as we said, you've got a lovely dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, which becomes a kind of dry sweetness into the aftertaste. Then you've got those toasty kind of brown sugary characters, more oily brown sugary characters that come out on top. Then yeah, lovely mix of oily and dry fruity character coming out of this one too. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this beer, I think, is really, really nice, in fact. But all in all, really positive experience with this beer. Not often you get to taste a wheat wine, especially one that's been aged for like 4 years, incidentally. But yeah, I think they've done a really good job of this one. So yeah, try it if you get the chance to try it. Even though it's 4 years old, I think it's still pretty damn good, actually. But don't leave it too much longer to drink. I think that's probably safe to say. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that with this one. This was the To Infinity and Beyond, an 11.9% barrel aged wheat wine, the second anniversary beer of Carbon Brews in Fultan in the New Territories here in Hong Kong. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Carbon Brews as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, skål, cheers. Check out my social media, check out Carbon Brews social media, and you will see more beers on the channel from these guys very soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and see you guys in the next one. Ciao just now.